ASMR video today. As you can see, we're doing another gum chewing and Magic the Gathering video. I'm going to be popping myself a piece of bubblegum gum in. And just going to get into the video. Now, a fair warning, there is some work going on upstairs. Drilling, hammering, the usual suspects as always. So fingers crossed it's not too obnoxious during this video. Otherwise, I will probably it'll probably just randomly cut off. Anyway, today we're going to get into a video looking at this wonderful deck that I have built. This is a commander deck. In this deck box. It is not a pre-con. I built this deck from scratch. I have used kind of a few different deck examples as inspiration as to the cards that are in this deck. But beyond that, it is everything made by me. There are no proxies in this deck. I bought and put together the whole thing myself, and we're just gonna get into it. So as you can see here, there's the deck. Before we do anything else, let's look at the commander. So it is a commander deck, which means there is a commander. And maybe we're just gonna flip through the deck. So my commander for this deck is Golbez, Clad in Darkness. No, there's the camera. Hello. This deck, or this card even, Golbez is basically a Final Fantasy reprint of Sir Conrad, a legendary creature, human knight, and his ability has two. The first is a passive. Whenever another creature dies or a creature is put into a graveyard from anywhere other than the battlefield, so that includes possibly from exile, but I can't imagine a situation that's very often going to be the case, but mostly from the library or from a hand like a discard, or a creature card leaves your graveyard, i.e. if a creature card leaves my graveyard, Sir Conrad will deal 1 damage to each opponent. So it is basically a pinging drain card. Every time a creature dies or is put into a graveyard or leaves my graveyard, every opponent loses a life. And then he has it's a not tapped ability, but it is a cost ability, which is 1 mana and 1 black. Each player mills a card, so there's a built-in mill as well. So if you haven't been able to figure out exactly what kind of deck would be built around this, it is a mill deck for the most part, with a sizable amount of recursion as well. I have played this deck only a few times, but I have won with one of them, and I could have won with the second, with the first game, but when I say could have won, I mean the pieces were set up. I needed 1 card, and I just didn't get it. But that'll be the way the magic is. So that is the commander. We'll put him over here for the moment. The rest of this deck is here. So as I take this out, I'll give you a bit of information. Architect, which I have this thing built on, basically a website for making magic decks, says that this is a bracket 4 deck. It very well is close to that. I would say at the very least it's 3. However, bracket 4 is arguably not the case because it has no game changers. That is in the works. There are a few game changers that I do want to get for this deck, such as Demonic Tutor and Barbaric Tutor. They are 2 cards that I do want to get into the deck, and will at some point. But for now it doesn't. But the reason it's bracket 4 is because of how specifically focused it is on milling, I guess, but also because I have 2 very early game 2-card infinite combos that are in the deck, and that kind of sizably influences the bracket combos in here. But that is that. So let's go and have a look at the other Nighty Night cards in the deck. I do actually have a sideboard here, and some tokens, which maybe we'll take a glance at. Let's see how this bit goes out. So first up we have Pitiless Plunderer, Human Pirate. Basically, by the way, I'm not going to go through every card. I don't think. I'm just kind of like glancing through, looking at them, maybe telling you their purpose in the deck. Pitiless Plunderer is a key card in the deck for a number of infinite combos. Whenever another creature dies, I can create a treasure token, which is really vital for an infinite combo with, actually, for example, this card here, Visceracia, which is a sack outlet, which basically means, sack outlet, if you're unfamiliar, basically just means a card you have for the express purpose of sacrificing creatures, which itself has a creature, says scry 1. Now these two together with another card called Gravewalker form a 3-card infinite combo, wherein you have all 3 of these on the deck. Gravewalker is sacrificed with Visceracia, goes to the graveyard. You gain a treasure token because that creature died, and then Gravewalker can be played from the graveyard, and Gravewalker only costs 1 black mana, which means you can use the treasure created by this to bring Gravewalker back. You can sack it again, get a treasure token, bring it back, sack it again to the graveyard, treasure token, bring it back. And of course this deck has Comrade, so if Comrade is on the field every time as part of that infinite combo, Gravewalker goes to the graveyard and dies. Every player loses a life. Every time it is brought back out of the graveyard, they lose a life. Basically, it's an infinite mill. Not an infinite mill, sorry. An infinite life loss. So these two cards are like key components. Well, this card absolutely is. Visceracy is also a good outlet. Phyrexian Delver is a very high cost card. Honestly, it's one of those that's on the fence at the moment. It is a zombie, which is useful. Oh, the other caveat here is that Gravewalker requires another zombie to be on the field. So, it's not perfect. I believe that's the case if I remember correctly. I could be wrong though. Anyway. So, Phyrexian Delver is in here as basically a recursion card more than anything else. I mean, it's got an okay 3/2. But ultimately, this card is in here as like a recursion card onto the battlefield. Give me a card back from the graveyard onto the battlefield, and then you lose life equal to the mana cost. So not a bad card, but it is expensive. So whether or not that stays in the deck, I'm not entirely sure. We have Heartless Summoning, which is great because creature spells cost 2 less to cast, which is a good one. Also, creatures get -1/-1. Well, I don't really care about attacking in this deck. This deck is built to drain, not to go into combat. So that does make a massive difference. But it is also a very useful card for like being a sack outlet. If I'm bringing on a 1/1 and I want it to keep dying, it comes on. The creature gets 0/0 because it has a -1/-1, and then it dies. Wake the Dead is like a mass, well, potentially depending on how much mana you pay. Recursion, really just there to bring a bunch of creatures back from the graveyard, especially if like someone is doing a mad attack, a lot on creatures, and you want to block them. That card is good for that. We've got Liliana of the Dark Realms, which is a really good Planeswalker card. Basically, she's a land tutor, and I guess you would call it ramp. Basically, the middle one is okay. So, +1 ability is search your library for a swamp card, reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle. You can -3 from her to give a +X or -X until the end of the turn, where X is the number of swamps you control. Not bad if you're doing something, if you want to do that for some reason. But the big one I think is worth having her for is a -6, which is you can create an emblem which means swamps you control. Oh, the emblem is swamps you control have tap and add 4 mana to your mana pool. So basically, she's a crazy ramp if you can get her up to 6. Each swamp will give 4 mana, which means the cost of cards is just inconsequential. So she's a great card, that's why she's in there. Swamp, of course. Mesmeric Orb is one of the 2 early game combos in this deck, along with Basalt Monolith. It's a 2 cost. Whenever a permanent becomes untapped, the permanent's controller mills a card. So that's a great way for me to mill my own deck. Basalt Monolith, the reason that is a 2-card combo is because Basalt Monolith has 2 abilities, which are tap the card to gain 3 colourless mana, or pay 3 colourless mana to untap the card. And so with Basalt Monolith, you can use the mana it produces to to untap it, and then tap it for the mana, untap it, tap it with the mana, untap it. And every time you untap it, Mesmeric Orb is going off, and you're milling a card for every time, so it's basically an infinite self-mill. Which, at that point, you may be able to mill enough to get a bunch of cards in your graveyard. If you want to mill your basically near enough your whole deck, you could, for whatever reason. Mostly to just deal basically the number of creatures in your graveyard, especially you're only going to want to do this if combat is out on the battlefield. Got the swamp there, another swamp. That's a foil from the Bloom Burrow. Buried Alive, good tutor card. Search a library for up to 3 creature cards, put them into your graveyard, shuffle. So basically it's for a recursion deck, it's really good to have that. Hedgehog Crawler, a simple ramp card, fairly cheap ramp creature card. Tainted Strike as part of a combo in the deck to do poison counters on your opponent. Every time that Comrade deals his 1 point of damage, if he has Tainted Strike on him or one of the other infect cards that are in this deck, that player takes a poison counter. If you get 10 of those, you die. So it's a great combo card to do, and you basically want to be doing that all in one. So the only time this is used really is if you're doing the combo. Another swamp where they cost a simple, cheap removal card, sack a creature, destroy target creature or planeswalker. Just a simple removal card there, because you need some removal. Altar of the Brood, another mill card. Whenever another permanent you control enters, each opponent mills a card. So a great way with Comrade on there to either destroy their deck and annoy them, or just deal damage if they pull creatures from their library, mill creatures from their library into the graveyard. Another swamp, Unseal the Necropolis, basically a mill card, and also recursion. It's a little bit of both. Each player mills 3 cards, which with Comrade could deal damage, and then I can take 2 creature cards from my graveyard to my hand, which then deals a further 2 damage by Comrade. So that can be a really good, like, boom, here's a bunch of damage card, which, I mean, is probably going to deal at least 2 if you have creatures in your graveyard, or possibly somewhere between 4 or 5 health, which, if that was the case, would be enough to kill with that Tainted Strike, but it still is a bit of a bet. This is Might Crank, which is a great card, basically a gold card for this deck. Whenever an opponent loses a life, they mill that amount of cards. So if they take 2 damage, they mill 2 cards. If they take 5 damage, they mill 5 cards. And that ability is why this is the second, or part of the second infinite 2-card combo in this deck early game. It's a 2-cost card. And the other one is Bloodchief Ascension, which will be in this deck. Apologies, I had to clear my throat. The next one we have is the Warring Triad, which is basically a mill card, and also a bit of ramp. So you can mill a card and then get a mana of any colour. Not bad. It's kind of in here just to be in there for the mana. Really, the only mana that matters is black, so realistically I could just replace it with a swamp and then that'll be beneficial, but also I just have it in there. But yeah, I mean I could probably replace it with a swamp and have a good effect. It's that 1 extra mill, but there's so much mill in this deck, it's probably not that vital. Another swamp, Flesh Bag, Marauder. Whenever he comes into play, each player sacrifices a creature. It's a good removal. Good removal card, just to get a few things off the board. And Trigger Conrad, Stitcher Supplier, very simple card. Enter or leave the battlefield. Well, technically, let's start that again. It enters the battlefield or dies. I mill 3 cards, so a bit of self-mill there. Another swamp, Archfiend of Depravity. Not a bad card. Honestly, this one may get changed out. I did like this card, I like the concept of it, but honestly, it's quite expensive and I'm not so sure about it. Maybe I'll keep it in there, maybe I'll swap it out for something that is has a bit more of an immediate early game effect. I'm trying to keep the cost of cards relatively low in this deck because I don't need big high-hitting cards. I don't need a 5/4 realistically, unless I'm trying to stop trample, but at that point I should try to win before then. So this creature has flying. At the beginning of each opponent's end step, that player chooses up to 2 creature cards they control, sacrifice the rest. So basically, it's a great way to limit everyone to having 2 creatures on the battlefield, which against like a sort of token tribal is absolutely disgusting. And a great way to deal a bunch of damage against tribal decks like that, or like, well, certainly token decks. If you've got, what's that goblin? Oh god, I can't remember the goblin one. There's a goblin mono red. A friend of mine plays it. But yeah. I think, oh damn. I think my microphone went out a little bit ways in there because it just said, I just got an error about 3 minutes ago. Oh, maybe that was when I, hold on. Is it some mute but has no signal? That feels like maybe when I muted, I don't know, that might be the case, or it just went out. Anyway, I have to keep an eye on that. Next one we have here is Returned Reveler, a zombie card again. Whenever he dies, each player puts the top 3 cards of his or her library into the graveyard. So another mill deck, basically it's just mill. A land here can tap for black or pay 2 colourless, 1 black to untap to sacrifice the card and return a creature card from the graveyard to the hand. So a bit of recursion, late game recursion if you really want to bring something back. This is the other part of the 2-card combo with Mind Crank, Enchantment to Bloodchief Ascension. So you can see the writing is very small on this one, but in short it is at the beginning of each end step, if an opponent lost 2 or more life this turn, you may put a quest counter on Bloodchief Ascension. And then the second part is, whenever a card is put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, i.e. from a mill, if Bloodchief Ascension has 3 or more quest counters on it, you may have that player lose 2 life, and if you do, I gain 2 life. So basically, it's a great way to basically take out an entire opponent, right? Or actually it would be everyone. So, if I remember correctly here, yes, so if I dealt 1 damage to someone, mind crank triggers, and then they have to mill a card. Once you've milled a card, Blood Chief Ascension triggers, that player loses 2 life, and then I gain 2 life. Because that player lost 2 life, mind crank triggers, you have to mill 2 cards. When mind crank triggers mills 2 cards, it triggers Blood Chief Ascension, they lose 2 life. They mill 2 cards, they lose 2 life, they mill 2 cards. And effectively it's a great way to basically do that. The thing is, because it's an infinite mill, it means that person is eventually going to mill a creature card, and when they do, what began with only affecting 1 player now affects everyone, because everyone took damage. Therefore, I believe that is the case. I could be wrong there. Yes, because mind crank triggers when they all lose damage, and then they all mill a card, then they all start taking this, so it's basically an infinite death sentence. Village Rites is up next. Sack a creature, draw 2 cards. Very simple spell, it's basically just some card draw. Carrion Feeder is, ultimately it is a sack outlet, cheap sack outlet. Great with Gravecrawler. Swamp. Another land, it is a slow land. Black mana. It also has Dredge too. Instead of drawing a card, you can mill 2 cards and then play this from your graveyard, which is nice. So if you've accidentally milled it, you can get yourself at least 1 guaranteed mana here. One of the other cards that I have in my sideboard for the deck is Scare Miller, which is basically a card that allows you to, when that creature becomes tapped, to play a land from your graveyard. So that is in there. Tortured Existence is another fantastic combo card. Basically, you can play a back mana, discard a creature, and then return a creature from the graveyard to your hand. If you have, this is actually designed to be comboed with Tainted Strike and other poison effects, because if I pay 5 mana, if I have a creature card, I pay 1 black mana to use the ability, that creature card goes in the graveyard, and then I take the same creature card back out, or at least swap between 2. I can just do this 5 times. Every time it enters and every time it leaves, Conrad deals a damage and does a poison counter. So basically I only need to deal 10 damage, or trigger this 5 times to kill everyone. So this is like a absolutely required card in the deck. Likewise, so is Soul Ring. 2 mana is excellent. Although interestingly, look at the way this one is designed. I've just realised it doesn't have like the 2 pips, it just says 2, which is interesting. I wonder how old that card is. 2014. Yeah, that makes sense. Another Swamp. Keening Stone, an expensive card, but I've been debating whether or not this will stay in the deck because of how expensive it is to play or to cast and to trigger the ability of. But this is a great endgame card if you just are like, I've got Conrad on the deck, I just want the game to be over soon. I can pay the cost, tap it. A target player mills X cards, where X is the number of cards in that player's graveyard. So if everyone's kind of low, I can play this on someone with like maybe the biggest graveyard or somewhere in the middle. Make them mill a bunch of cards, and every time they put a creature, every opponent loses a life. So basically you're triggering 1 person to kill everyone. Undercity Informer, another decent sack outlet. Pay 1, sacrifice a creature, target player reveals cards on the top of his or her library until they reveal a land card, and then put those into the graveyard. So great way to mill a bunch if you're lucky and get them to mill some land as well, a land I guess. Dreadhound is a sort of like lesser version of Conrad, but more expensive. When Dreadhand enters the battlefield, mill 3 cards. And then the core is, whenever a creature card dies or a creature card is put into a graveyard from a library, i.e. through mill, each opponent loses 1 life. So basically this is like, if I want to double up, I can have these both on and it triggers twice. Again, I'm not sure if I'll keep Dreadhound in here because of the expensive nature of it, and I found that actually getting Conrad back in is easy, or is easier. So, to segue a little bit here, so Conrad has, obviously when you're playing Commander, it gets more expensive when your creature is removed. So, he would go up to 5 and 2 black, which is 7 cost rather than 5 every time he's removed, and he gets removed quite often. So what I've started doing, or what I did from the get-go actually, and I found really works for Conrad, is when he dies, he doesn't go in the commander zone. Instead I put him in the graveyard, because I have so much recursion in this deck that he just ends up back on the battlefield or in my hand to be played anyway, for the same cost. The riskiness of that is, of course, if someone plays an exile graveyard card at that point before he's back, my entire deck is useless. Because everything really relies on Conrad, and I'd have to like figure out another way to win the game. Which means that, you know, a lot of the deck does rely on him, but, you know, that's just part and parcel of the fun of making a deck, and that's what I wanted. You know, I know a lot of like the higher level sort of bracket 5 decks kind of use the commander as a useful card that's consistent but not necessarily built around him. But I just want to make a deck that is like completely focused around the commander, because that feels thematically fun, right? Anyway, next we have Crypt of Academe, slow land, black mana, and you can pay 2 colourless to add a black mana for each creature in your graveyard, which is pretty good because I'm going to end up with a lot of creatures in the graveyard in the mid game, so that becomes a very good card. Alicia's Legacy, just a general protection spell. Creature you control gains death touch and indestructible to the end of turn. So basically, if someone targets, or well, I guess it's more like if I want to block something, but also if I guess the other kind of thing here is if someone has like fight and they want to target Conrad with a fight ability, it becomes it has death touch, but also if he's targeted by anything, I can drop indestructible. Swamp, there's sequestered stash, another land, colourless. I can sacrifice for 4 mana and put the top 5 cards of my library into the graveyard, and then put an artifact from your graveyard onto the top of the library, which is pretty good. Stitched Together, a recursion card. It gets more powerful the more cards you have in your graveyard. So the basic ability is return target creature card from the graveyard to your hand, but if you have 7 or more cards in the graveyard, it goes straight onto the battlefield. I have used that before to get Conrad back out. Cruel Truths. This is card draw. Surveil 2. So basically looking at the top 2 cards, either putting them into your graveyard or putting them back on the top. Draw 2 cards, lose 2 life. Final Parting is another tutor card. Search your library for 2 cards, put one of them into your hand, the other into your graveyard, and then shuffle. For a deck with a lot of recursion, putting it into the graveyard is kind of like putting it into your hand, if not actually better. Plaguecrafter. When Plaguecrafter enters, each player sacrifices a creature or a planeswalker. Each player who can't discards a card, so a great way to trigger him on multiple fronts, even if you don't have a creature. Dark Ritual is basically a flash ramp card. Costs 1 to get an extra 2 black mana. I say an extra 2 black because it obviously costs a black to play. We have Worry Beads. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player puts the top card of their library into their graveyard. This is a decent card. It annoys people enough But this is probably one that may get changed because it's got quite a weak mill compared to what else could be put into the deck. But I like it for its consistent mill every turn. Then we've got Leech-Ridden Swamp, Slow Land, Black Mana. You can also pay a black mana and tap to cause each opponent to lose 1 life. But you can only do that if you have more than 2 or more black permanents. Want of Vertebrae is just a cheap mill card. You can tap it and put a mill a card basically. It's a 1-cost artifact. Or you can pay 2, colourless, exile, and then shuffle up to 5 creature cards from your graveyard into your library, which isn't bad. Oh gosh, how far in are we? A little bit of halfway. Maybe this will be a longer video. Next up we have Ayara, First of Lochthwain. So, she's a pretty good card as well. Whenever she or another black creature enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1. So she's a drain creature and also a life gain. You can also sacrifice another creature and draw a card, so she's got a bit of sack outlet, and she's got some card draw as well for a 3-cost. Pretty good. I think she's a great card and quite good for the deck. And if Conrad isn't on the table, she can basically act as a weaker Conrad or Golbez if you want to go by the deck. But of course, the mill, like for example, some of those other combos, it only happens when the creature enters the battlefield, not leaves it right and dies. Then we've got the other part of the original two-card combo with Mesmeric Orb, Basalt Monolith. As you can see here, as I said earlier on, you can tap it to add 3 mana to the pool, or you can pay 3 mana to untap it. So basically, you can infinitely tap and untap this card, which Mesmeric Orb means every time you do that, you mill a card. And you can see here, Basalt Monolith doesn't untap during your upkeep step, or untap step even. Then we've got another Swamp, Killing Wave. This is just another removal spell. For each creature, its controller sacrifices it unless they play X life. So, if I want to like wipe the board with a bunch of stuff, I can trigger this, and some creatures may stay, but it's going to trigger Conrad regardless. Swamp, nice foiled swamp there. And then we've got another Swamp, Evolving Wilds. This is a fetch land. Sacrifice, search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. I already do that for getting some land on there. Another Swamp. Perpetual Timepiece, which is another pretty decent card. It is a tap mill, so mill a card, and then I can exile it, pay 2, shuffle any number of cards from your graveyard into your library. So a great way of triggering back Conrad's ability. Oh, so I've got to stretch for a second there. I may just stand for a moment. Oh, my goodness me. Sorry guys, my back has been playing up the last couple of days. It's been a while since it's hurt, but yeah, we're back being in back pain, which is a lot of fun. Alright, well, I'm going to continue, but I'll just do it standing up now, so it may seem a bit more quiet. And next we have Millikin, which is a simple mill card, and also a bit of ramp, so you can tap to mill a card, and then add a colourless to the mana pool. Morality Shift. I actually won with this card the other day. You exchange your library and your graveyard. When you do that with Conrad on board, all of your cards are entering from your library are entering the graveyard. All of your cards from the graveyard are entering your library. So he basically triggers for every creature that you have in your library and every creature you have in your graveyard. So say I had 25 creatures in a deck, Conrad counts as one of them, so let's say I have 26 creatures, so Conrad counts creatures that are on the battlefield, and none have been exiled. That means I have 22 creatures within either my library and my graveyard combined. When I cast Morality Shift, they switch places. He triggers 22 times, deals 22 damage. And I won with that the other day on in a game where I was really strapped for mana and actually kind of losing the game. The game was going to be over next turn. I pulled a land. I had this card in my hand from like round 2 or 3, turn 2 or 3, and I needed one land to play it. I pulled the land at the beginning of that turn and was able to play the card and win the game, kind of out of nowhere. Another Swamp Pit Keeper is another really good card. When he enters the battlefield, if you have 4 more creature cards in your graveyard, you can return one from the graveyard to your hand to another recursion. Grand Clock is another mill. So every turn you can tap it to put a charge counter on it, and then at any point you can then tap it to basically force a player to mill the amount of an amount of cards equal to the amount of charge counters on it, which is good. It's a good little mill. We have Guardian Idol here, which is just a ramp card, a cheap ramp card, colourless mana for 1, or it can become a column artifact, which is kind of like not really relevant. Sanitarium Skeleton, 1 cost skeleton. I can return it from the graveyard to my hand for 2 colours and a black. Honestly, I used to think this was going to be a great card for this deck, but I actually think it's probably not really worth it that much. So this is potentially on the docket to be changed out. I try not to change things out unless 1, I really think they don't work, or 2, I played a game and gone, wow, that really does just like nothing for me. Phrasis is an aura card, so a permanent version of Tainted Strike, more or less, without the +1 counter. So this would be good on Sir Golbears, putting on Sir Golbears, and then every time he deals damage, deals a poison counter. Another black mana there with the Swamp Gravecrawler. Oh, I said Gravewalker earlier on. It's because of it's that Lord of the Rings game, Shadow of Mordor. Gravecrawler is a good card. So the creature can't block, 1 cost, and you can make cards this card from your graveyard as long as you control a zombie. So obviously having a zombie on the field is vital to be able to recast that card. We have Sideboard, Regent of the Mire here. Tap and sacrifice a creature control with mana value X, and it can't be this card. And then you can return a creature card with mana value X +1 from your graveyard to the battlefield, but it can only be done as sorcery, so you can't do this on someone else's turn. So it's a nice little recursion card there, and also a sack outlet as well. Black mana swap there, Ghoulish Procession. In short, this card is a token generator, because having tokens is pretty good for just being able to use them as additional sack. In short, whenever a creature dies on a turn, you can create a 2/2 black zombie creature token, but the creature token has decayed, which basically means it can't block, and it is discarded where it's sacrificed when it finishes combat if it wasn't already dead, but also it can only be triggered once per turn. So if 30 cards are removed off the board, I don't make 30 tokens, I make 1. We have Empty the Catacombs, basically big recursion, return all creature cards from a target player's graveyard to their hand, which is a good card for me to play on myself. Bring all the creatures back to my hand, which triggers Sir Conrad, and then at the end of turn, during the cleanup, when I discard a bunch, it triggers him again, because of course it is when a creature enters the graveyard from anywhere, including your hand. Prismatic Lens, basically just a ramp card, colourless mana, pay 1 mana and trigger it to do mana of any colour. We've got a Swamp again, Forever Young, another Reassembling the Skeleton is another combo card, really good for dropping a infinite combo. Just like beforehand, as I'd mentioned, it can be served as an infinite mill, or and also an infinite like E2B and LTB. So, Resemblance Skeleton, you pay 1 colourless, 1 black to bring it back from the graveyard to the battlefield. Whoops. From the battlefield to the graveyard, or from the graveyard to the battlefield. Now, this combo has to be served with a sack outlet. Comrade has to be on the table, of course, if you want to benefit from the damage. You need Ashnod's Altar, which I do have in this deck, and you need Pitiless Plunderer. It can also therefore serve as an infinite colourless mana production, because it only costs 1 colourless and 1 black to do this, but in doing this you produce 2 colourless and 1 black, so there is 1 colourless, so you could do this a bunch and get like loads of colourless mana to pay for things. Another swamp, Songs of the Damned, is basically another cheap ramp card, giving an immediate mana for each creature in your graveyard. So if you have a hefty graveyard, it's really good. Dutiful Attendant, when it dies, return a creature from the graveyard to your hand, so basically another recursion. So much of this deck is like when a creature dies, bring something back, and like, you know, bring stuff from the graveyard back and forth. Besiege the Queen is another, I would say, pretty fantastic tutor card. So you can search your library for a card with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands you control, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your library. The reason I think this is so good is because I do have multiple infinite, well, I have obviously 2 infinite combos, which means the chances of at least one of them coming up is, well, it's not common, but if it does and I have this card, it's basically a potential win there and then. So, and both of those combo cards are really cheap, which means by the time that I can probably cast this card, which is going to be 3 black, I'm likely to be able to, you know, play those cards, and it's just going to be not fun. And I did have that happen. I was playing a game with Katie the other day, and very early on I got Mind Crank on the deck, or on the battlefield, and I had this card in hand, and I said to her, like, I'm going to be honest with you, I could end this game right here and right now, but I don't want to, because A, it would annoy her, and 2, I didn't really want the game to be over that quick. But with Mind Crank on there, you can play the card, go into your library, because those cards are so cheap. I could go get Bloodchief Ascension, which I'm pretty sure is either, I think it might be a 1 cost. I think I remember it being a 1 cost. I could be wrong. I'm not going to sift through it. Yeah, I'm not going to sift back through for it. But it's very cheap, so you get it into your hand, and the next turn you play it, and you could potentially win the game. Next we have Whisperer, Blood Liturgist, another foil card here. I love this card, it's been really good for me. You can sack 2 creatures, tap the card, and you can technically sacrifice it as well as part of this, and return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, which, honestly, most of the recursion in this deck is to bring him back, because again, he's going into the graveyard. Next we have Kaya's Ghost Form, which is basically an enchantment that I would put on Golbez. You can enchant a creature or a planeswalker. Whenever an enchanted permanent dies or is put into exile, return that card to the battlefield under your control. So essentially, he technically does die, and then he comes back, so he actually triggers his ability. If he was killed, not exiled. So basically it's a protection card for Golbez, which is good. A couple more swamps here, a few more swamps in fact. Another Land Haunted Fingereth, colourless to your mana pool, or pay 3, tap it, return a creature card from at random from your graveyard to your hand. Interesting. Then we have Unburied Earthcarver, another sack outlet, pay 2, guess if you were playing this with Gravecrawler, and you had Ashnod's Altar, and you had Pitiless Plunderer, you could do an infinite combo with this, I think, because you'd constantly be getting +2 to then sacrifice the creature that you were putting away and get basically infinite +1s on this. Then we have Cadaver Imp. I never thought of that one before. That's just come up, I think that's right. Cadaver Imp, simple 1/1 flying creature. When it enters the battlefield, return a target creature card from your graveyard to your hand to another recursion. Dark Bargain. Look at the top 3 cards of your library, put 2 of them in your hand, the other 2 into your graveyard, and then you get you're dealt 2 damage. So just more card draw. Golgari Thug. Whenever Golgari Thug dies, put a creature from your graveyard onto the top of your library. In addition to that, you can dredge 4, which basically means if I was going to draw a card, instead I can mill 4 cards and then return him from the graveyard to my hand, which is good because I want to mill cards in this deck, so it's basically a win-win. Another black mana there in the swamp, Shared Trauma. Again, this is one where I'm like, maybe it will stay in here, maybe not. So starting with you, each player may pay an amount of mana, any amount of mana. Each player puts the top X cards from his or her library into their graveyard, where X is the total number of mana they paid this way. So, yeah, you can pay some mana and mill cards. But again, maybe not the best card out there for this deck, but it's in here for the time being. As mentioned earlier on, Ashnod's Altar is in here. Sacrifice a creature, add 2 colourless mana. Overall, just a fantastic card for anyone doing a sacrifice deck. We have 2 swamps, and we end with a final swamp. And there we go, guys. That is the deck. I said I was going to go through card by card, but here we are. I've done it now. We're looking at nearly 50 minutes long, this video. But that is my deck. I'll tell you what, we'll go, just for the sake of it, we'll go through some of my honourable mentions, which of course are my sideboard full deck. So, let's go through that. So, I have a bunch of 2/2 zombie tokens in here. That's what this is. There's the camera, hello again. I also mentioned this one, Scaretiller. Whenever Scaretiller becomes tapped, you can choose one, which is put a land from your hand onto the battlefield tapped, or return a target land from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So this is a great card to bring land that you have milled back into the battlefield. I think it's a good card, but the question is how often you're going to be tapping the card. If it's not in combat, right, and as a 1/4, I don't often want to be throwing that in if people have got higher creatures, so I'm uncertain. But it's definitely in the side docket because I'm like, I want to maybe play around with it. We've got Bloodcurdler, which was an original card for the deck that I got, but I've since taken it out. So it does have flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, put the top card of your library into your graveyard, so basically a mill. And then Threshold, Bloodcurdler gets +1/+1, and has, at the end of your turn, remove 2 cards in your graveyard from the game. So it does technically trigger Golbez because it's leaving the graveyard every turn, but the reason this is not in the deck, despite it being really good for that reason, is because I don't want to force myself into removing cards I don't want to. So I may drop it in the deck and wait until it plays a game and see how it plays, but I don't know, like, I feel like forcing myself to remove 2 cards, whilst it's great, it's especially bad if Golbez isn't even on the field, and it's even worse if he is the only thing in the graveyard. So that's why I'm torn on this one. Next up we have Eye Collector, simple 1 fairy, 1/1 flying. Whenever Eye Collector deals combat damage to a player, each player mills a card. This is a great early game card, but the chances of it coming up in early game can be quite rare. Like, there's 99 cards in this deck. at some point someone is going to probably have something to deal with flyers. It's a 1-1, and it has to deal combat damage to a player. So, in all honesty, it's not in here because whilst it's really good when it does work, it's short-lived in my honest opinion. Next up is Grey Merchant Oz Asphodel. The cost of this card is why I'm kind of on the fence, but this is a strong contender, and it's in my sideboard because I do want to think about whether I want to put it in or not. So whenever he enters the battlefield, each opponent loses X life, where X is your devotion to black, which is of course the amount of like black pips your permanents have. And then you gain life equal to the damage dealt that way, or to the life lost. So it's a great life gain when it enters, and if you can like bring it in, it'd be pretty good. But it is a high cost card, so I do kind of want to work it in, but I'm still on the fence about it right now. But I know like a lot of decks do have it in, so it's probably worth considering. Next we have Soul of Innistrad. It is a 6 cost. Again, one of the reasons it's not just in the deck. Also, its abilities are 5 cost each. It has Death Touch. Its first ability is return up to 3 target creature cards from the graveyard to your hand. Alternatively, you can exile it and pay the cost, and return 3 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand. So this is it. So basically, in short, while this is on the battlefield, you can trigger its ability for the cost. Alternatively, you can play it from the grave. Well, you can't play it from the graveyard, but you can use its ability here, its bottom one, to do the same thing, exiling it from the graveyard out of the game, and then bringing more creatures back to your hand. So it's basically a recursion card, but it's very expensive. So personally, I would rather spend that mana on other things during a turn, which is why it's not in here. Next up is the 3 cost Doomsday. It is basically an all or nothing card. Search your library and graveyard for 5 cards of your choice. Remove the rest of them from the game. Put the chosen cards on the top of your library in any order you choose. You lose half. You lose half your life rounded up. Here's the thing. Doomsday can be a really good card with a really niche combo. I have it in here because the concept of removing everything from the library would be very interesting, because everything is being removed, right? Now, obviously, removing the library doesn't really help much, but in the library, the graveyard at least, you're removing that. So if you played this like relatively late in the game, and everyone like had say 10 health left or something like that, and you had 10 creatures in your graveyard, and you had Comrade out, you play the card, you choose a few cards, but ultimately it doesn't matter what you pick, because you just dealt 10 damage or more to everyone, and you win the game. So it's basically a 3 cost, win the game in that niche moment. So for that reason, it is, for this deck, it could be a very very late game card to basically wipe out. You could also play in conjunction with Morality Shift if your library was really dense. Swap your... Well, actually, I guess it doesn't really matter because the library also gets... No, of course it does, because the library would have to be in the graveyard for this to be worthwhile, because it only triggers Godbear's only triggers when things leave the graveyard, not your library. It's when it goes from your library into your graveyard. Library to exile doesn't trigger him. So yeah, you'd have to combo it. But it is a really interesting card. You could also do this if you had enough mana. You could early game do this to do an infinite combo. But again, the likelihood is you're gonna want him to be won the game. So it is really worth it in the deck as like a crazy card to throw out there, but it's very niche. I may have just argued myself into potentially putting it in there, even if it's just to try it out. Anyway, the last card is Unstable Obelisk. This has been in the deck for a while. I actually swapped this out today and put a different card in. I can't remember what I swapped it with, but I put a different card in there. Oh, I put an extra land in, that was it. I swapped this out because I need more black mana, to be honest, in this deck. And it's a really expensive, like, first of all, it's a 3 cost. It's quite expensive for like an artifact to produce mana. It's not going to be very early into the first few rounds. I will be able to use this even if it came up. I'm better off with the land. But also, whilst it has a really good like ability here, which is destroy a target permanent, which could be someone's land, it is very expensive. It's going to be very late in, and by that point I'm hoping to have won the game, but I don't know. So much of this deck is designed to, again, drain opponent's life very, very quickly, and kill them with their own milling, or my milling at the least, or recursion. And in practice, it definitely works that way. The first game I played with this, I was absolutely shocked about how quickly the life goes down as soon as Sir Conrad comes out. Like, everyone's life can drop to near enough nothing within a couple of rounds because everyone is fighting, everyone is like sacking, especially if you've got other people that are playing sacrifice decks, and that, or just any deck that has a lot of sacking in it. They drain the life very, very quickly, and it got to the point where a friend who I was playing with has said, if he ever sees me take out this deck, he is immediately going to target me, and Conrad is going to become a very quick person to be taken off the battlefield. And that is why there is so much recursion in this deck, because I anticipated that that is exactly what is going to happen when I start playing this deck. So yeah, I like it. There are more cards to come. I haven't ordered anything, but like I said, I do want to put some game changers in here. Cabal Stronghold is one I'm definitely considering, but certainly Demonic and Vampiric Tutor are two that I really do want to get into this deck. Expensive cards, probably won't come anytime soon, but they are two that will definitely go in here. They're just too good not to. Any kind of tutoring is just going to be like optimum for this deck, because it just gets that infinite combo going as quickly as possible, which is what I obviously want to do with it. And then I can tailor this deck to the sort of group I'm playing with. So if I know that I'm playing with some people, I'll either take those combo cards out, or like part of the combo out, and add something in instead that I want to just try out or play with, or I will just not use that combo like I did the other day, where I said, like, I could do this right now, but I'm not going to do that because that would, like, suck. So, yeah, there we go. Oh, also, guys, you know what I just forgot to say? New mat here. This is not a play mat, though it would be cool to use it as such. In fact, this is just a desk mat, a D&D desk mat that I got for Christmas. It is beautiful. My mother and sister got me this for Christmas. It is actually absolutely stunning. See if we can get a wider shot. Oh, there goes the camera going crazy. There you go, this is about as wide as you're going to get. But thank you very much for listening, guys. We are now over an hour into this video, so I'd like to thank you for watching, sticking around this long. I know some people love the longer videos, so I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you in whatever video comes next, guys. Remember to like, subscribe, all that fun stuff, and I will see you then. Take care.